Hello, hello! My name is Matty McMovies, my birth name, my given name, and I'm here to review the latest movie I saw on Netflix called Velvet Buzzsaw. The film stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Rene Russo. It's directed by Dan Gilroy, and he directed Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler a few years back, a movie I really loved, one of my favorites that year. So some pretty good hype going into this, not to mention a pretty great trailer. All got me pretty excited for it. The basic plot is this. An old man dies. Turns out he was a brilliant painter, and a Miami art gallery comes into possession of all of his works. They begin selling all of his works for millions of dollars, ridiculous amounts of money, and then those works of art turn on the buyers and the sellers and begin killing them in weird ways, mysterious ways. Now, the thing I like most about the movie is its premise. Just from the synopsis alone and from the first 20 minutes of the movie, it seemed like it was setting up a Night of the Museum type situation, except with fine art, and fine art that murders you. So that's a fun horror premise that I can get behind. So I like that a lot, and it pays off sometimes a little bit. Not as much as I hoped it would have. I was kind of hoping it'd go off the rails, and it tries really hard to stay grounded despite paintings coming alive and killing people. So that's too bad, but it's still a pretty unique premise to see play out, and it's kind of fun. And also the performances were just great. I think the standout for sure was Jake Gyllenhaal. He's fantastic. He impresses in everything he does, and this is no exception. He plays a very cynical art critic and just a complete douche. Actually, pretty much every character in this movie is a complete douche, but he plays it really well, and he has probably the closest thing to a character arc in the movie. So he's the most interesting character, and he's the best acted character. So big props to Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, I think the film's theme, its message was delivered pretty well. And that is that we're kind of losing sight of what the real meaning of art is, or the true meaning. How some artists bare their souls and put it into this art, and all we can do is put a price tag on it and sell it. And that's all we see art as, right? That's all these characters see art as in this big art gallery circuit in Miami. They just want to make money, and that's all it is to them. It's just dollar signs. So greed consumes them about this art, so then the art consumes them, like literally, and that's the horror of it. So I get the message, and it's a pretty creative way to drive that message home. So the message effectively delivered, but the horror inherent in this premise is not that well executed, in my opinion. And that is 100% because the CGI is just all over the place. A lot of CGI is used, which for me, across the board, the more in-your-face CGI there is, the less scary it is. And as an example, I can think of The Shining. No, not the Stanley Kubrick, the famous Shining, the TV movie adaptation that Stephen King directed or produced, or both. Anyway, this TV movie tried to adapt a scene from the book that Stanley Kubrick did not adapt into his movie, which was these kind of hedge animals, like a lion or something, like animals cut into hedges. In the book, the characters feels like they're coming alive, and every time he looks away, it feels like they get a little closer when he looks back, and that's creepy. When you don't see it moving, it feels like they're moving. It makes you paranoid. Reading that is scary, but in the TV movie, they put these abominations of CGI, early CGI, like late '90s CGI, big hedge lions running around after the characters, and it diffuses any of the horror that was inherent in those scenes in the books. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but that's basically what I'm talking about with Velvet Buzzsaw. You have all these works of art, faces, eyes in the paintings, and they do a little bit of it early on before they go full CGI, where like eyes will be staring straight ahead, and then it'll cut away, and then it looks back, the eyes are looking out of the corner of their eyes at the character. That's creepy. It kind of happened off screen. The stuff that happens behind your back while you're not paying attention. The stuff that makes you paranoid. That's scary. But in this movie, they go full CG with paintings coming alive, reaching out, grabbing the people. For this viewer, that is less scary than the stuff that happens while you're not looking. Just my opinion. So yeah, I thought they just showed you a little bit too much with the paintings coming to life. And moreover, the deaths, the murders by the paintings are over like that. There's very little build up to them, and then they're over, and that's it. And that's pretty much all the movie has to say about it. It would have been cool for a little more build up, and the one death that they do take a while to build up just makes no sense because the character just does something so out of character, so stupid that you're just, this is dumb. So that kind of diffuses that as well. So the horror didn't really work for me in this movie, despite it being a pretty creative premise. I touched on the characters a little bit earlier, saying Jake Gyllenhaal's character had pretty much the only convincing character arc in the whole movie. And that's true, in my opinion, and one of the big negatives, another big negative, is all the characters kind of suck. Not that they're not interesting, but just that they're despicable, pretentious douchebags, and none of them learn or grow or have an arc at all. They're awful from beginning to end, with the minor exception of Jake Gyllenhaal, who begins a character arc and then just they don't finish it. They don't let him satisfyingly come to that conclusion of his arc. But that's about as close as they get. All the characters are not very well fleshed out. And you can't really get behind them. You don't root for them to live through the thing. And, maybe a horror movie can get away with having awful characters like this if they have gruesome, satisfying deaths coming for them. But as I mentioned, that's not the case in my opinion. So the characters are just a wash. So yeah, all in all, I think this is a case of squandered potential. I think this premise is just ripe for some good horror, and I think it just didn't deliver for me. The message, I think, that was delivered just fine. I like it. I believe in it, actually. So that part worked. The characters were awful, but the acting was good. But yeah, I think it's just a missed opportunity for some great, fun horror. So I'll give it a very soft C-, 70% maybe. So not the worst thing I've seen this year. Just kind of a disappointment. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. And that's about all I have for this Recliner review. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.